Which direction do the Braves need to go with their offensive addition? Shortstop or a big bat? Or should they be aggressive and sign both? Chris Thomas from 92.9 The Game has some thoughts. Yes, welcome on into Braves Today for Wednesday, November 26th, your source for news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm Lindsey Crosby, proud to be joined by my friend Chris Thomas from 92.9 The Game in Atlanta. Chris, busy offseason for the Braves so far, highlighted by the trade for Mauricio Dubón. And I think the conversation has shifted now to, do you play him at shortstop, or do you go try to sign Ha-Sung Kim and get a big bat instead? Something maybe even like a Cody Bellinger type bat. What do you think is the best route for the Braves to take?
I'll start off with this, Lindsey. If Mauricio Dubón is your starting shortstop for the 2026 season and potentially beyond, we are sounding the alarms because that shows that this Atlanta Braves team does not have winning another World Series atop its priority list and is more concerned about keeping the payroll at a certain budgetary restriction for Alex Anthopoulos than it is about adding another ring jingling and jangling in their pockets. Listen, he's a good player, but he is best served off the bench. That's where he's won a couple of Gold Gloves. He can play the outfield. He can play the infield. He can even play some corner spots if you need him to. And if your team has that asset off the bench, you're in really good shape.
That's kind of where I lean on. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, if this team is not willing to, and I know we'll expand on this in just a little bit, if this team is not willing to dig deep and break that sort of 6-7 plane in the payroll where they have been the last couple of years, I think that that's sending a message loud and clear about what they think about the priorities are in terms of truly getting back into contention after a 76-win season and being okay with thinking, hey, we can win the World Series any year, but should we win the World Series every year? That's the question.
Yeah, it's I think on the Dubón thing, I agree with you. It's one, we just don't know what the utility guy is going to do when he's playing a everyday position every single day. Houston kind of had to push him into that role the last couple seasons, and his offense has dropped as he's done that. Maybe he just can't maintain the same ability playing 160 games. But I think I agree with you. And I want to go ahead and get to that larger point. We've seen a couple teams like Texas just non-tendered Adolis Garcia and Jonah Heim, traded Marcus Semien. They won the World Series a year after the Braves did. And we saw Philly. Philly made it to the World Series. They've not gone back. I'm sorry, made it to the NLCS. They've not gone back. The Mets made it to the NLCS, didn't make the postseason the next year. It almost feels to me, to your point, that you're not guaranteed that the contention window is going to be as wide open as it is. And we've seen teams like the Seattle Mariners. Their GM famously said, our goal is to win 54% of our games, because if we do that, more often than not, we'll be in the postseason. And if you're in the postseason, you have a shot at the World Series. It sounds like you kind of feel the Braves need to be more aggressive than that and need to spend as much money as they need to give themselves multiple bites at a World Series and not just multiple bites at making the postseason.
I don't want to get on a soapbox, but allow me for just a second, my friend Lindsey.
Please
to go just a tad macro here.
Okay.
Baseball has been trailing significantly behind other sports leagues for a long time. Until now. Last season, and particularly the playoffs, and particularly more the World Series, I think reminded a lot of baseball fans just how fun this game can be. And now not only is the window to capitalize on that in a macro perspective for Major League Baseball as a whole, but that needs to send out the bat signal to all the individual clubs down to the Marlins and the Pirates and the Reds and all these other teams that, hey, our sport is onto something right now. You need to capitalize on it. Now, specifically with the Braves, again, they've had a threshold. They said, we're willing to creep past the top 10 into the top 7, into the top 6. But if you want us to go beyond that, maybe you're thinking a little too big for your britches there. If you make the investment this offseason, we know all the tools that this team has. But what they have not done, in my opinion, Lindsay, over the last couple of seasons, has made the extra effort that 1 or 2 missing pieces, mostly in the pitching staff, to go over the top and say, we're coming into this thing with a full deck. I always feel like this team is 80, 85% complete. But if you're willing to put in the extra money and that extra mile marker, this team, we know it ad nauseum. That's why last season was so frustrating, because this team has all the talent in the world. But because of injury and because of lack of depth, particularly with the pitching staff, they couldn't overcome. Are they going to finally do that this year and go after a Lucas Giolito type? Probably say no, but we'll see.
Yeah, like it feels like the issue you've had, and you know, great job of kind of touching on that, is like it's been a team that's prepared for opening day, but then things go wrong. Like everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
Yep.
Mike Tyson, I believe. Yep. And they have the plan for opening day, right? They've got their starting 5. The rotation looks great. They've got their position players. And then the first time somebody goes down, you're starting Bryce Elder 25 times in the season. You're running out, you know, Nick Allen at shortstop, or you're running out, you know, some sort of Jared Kelnick in your outfield, some sort of substandard.
Dare I say Didier Fuentes would like a word. Yes.
Yeah, he started the season in like single A, and he's pitching major league games for you in the middle of the summer. Yeah, it's like the depth hasn't been there. And getting Dubón, if he's the first piece of multiple pieces that you get, shows you that, like, hey, it's going to be a much deeper team, a much more complete team. And that ignores the ability with Dubón to, like, keep the other guys healthy. Something that's bugged me so much in the last couple seasons, we saw it with Austin Riley a lot, is Atlanta lets these guys play when they're nicked up. Because Austin Riley's so much better than the backup. Ronald Acuña Jr. is so much better than the backup. And if you can use Dubón 4 days a week, a different position every day, keeping a guy healthy, you know, giving a guy a day off, keeping a guy healthy, if you need to pinch hit him later, whatever, you can do that. It feels like that's the big change that Atlanta needs to make. And to your point, since your farm system's not giving you a lot in the way of position players, you need to spend money to get that depth to be able to do that. When it comes to pitching ads, I feel like you have pieces. How realistic is it that they need to go sign a guy versus just trading for somebody? Does it matter? Like, I guess here's my question. Is making a big signing of a guy, I don't know if it's going to be a Dylan Cease or somebody who's not in the qualifying offer, like a Chris Bassett, is that more so a signaling thing for Alex Anthopoulos, where he can say, look, I heard you guys about the losing. I heard you guys about the season ticket prices. We're spending money to try and get back to the World Series. Or are you fine if you make the addition via trade as long as you make the addition?
Here's my caveat.
Yeah.
I'm fine with a Chris Bassett type back end of the rotation move.
Yeah.
If you give me 2 bullpen studs, because this team, I'm going to say it pretty harshly, but it's deserved because of the results from last year, pretty arrogantly went into last season saying, we don't need a legit setup, man. We got guys. We got Pierce Johnson. We got Dylan Dodd and Dylan Lee, and we got Aaron Bummer, and we'll bring up Hurston Waldrop. We'll be fine.
And
sorry, you can't go through an entire Major League Baseball season without a back end of a bullpen to bridge the gap to Rysel, who, by the way, just to be fair, had a 7 ERA almost in the first half of the season.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got to look at it for what it is. So this team cannot make that same mistake again, especially because we don't know what's going on with Joe Jimenez. That injury situation is weird. He didn't wind up pitching at all last year. Seems like some kind of setback maybe, or the injury was worse than led on.
He had a follow-up cleanup procedure a couple of weeks ago, which is wild. He's going to lose possibly 2 seasons and get paid like $18 million to
right. So you have to be able to fortify the bullpen. So if you're going to go, I won't even say cheap. If you're going to go modest on a starting pitcher, because you absolutely need at least one, then you have to show me that you mean something by going out and getting two solid guys that could pitch in the 7th and the 8th innings.
Yeah, and it's just one of those, like, spend the money, get the pieces, get the names so that we can see you're trying to win and you're really making the push here. Yeah, that's I feel like the place where the Braves are right now is you can't afford to just be conservative at this point because to your point, you were conservative last offseason. A lot of it was, hey, the injuries were bad in 2024. These guys will be healthy in the lineup and will be better. And then early they were healthy and you weren't better. So I do think you gotta be aggressive and add. How aggressive you need to be with some of these guys, though, is a conversation I want to have, because we talked on the radio on Saturday about one specific Braves hitter who really struggled last year and how much patience can you have in 2026 with some of these guys. We'll talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsey Crosby here with Chris Thomas of 92.9 The Game. Follow him on social media at @CThomasRadio. He's talking, obviously, he's talking Atlanta Braves, talking Atlanta Falcons. College football is a big topic right now. Everything over on 92.9 The Game. You asked me on Saturday when I was on the radio with you, really great question about Michael Harris. Ever since he won Rookie of the Year, it feels like, and I say feels, and it's true, his performance has kind of taken a step back every single season, culminating in last year when, right around the All-Star break, he was one of the worst qualified hitters in baseball. He's signed a long-term deal. It's not incredibly expensive, right? He's owed like $8 million next year. The highest it gets is $12 million in 2030. How patient can you be with Michael Harris when you're seeing the same problems now in year 3 and year 4 of the swing decisions, the chase, the lack of walks?
Completely dependent upon how the rest of the guys do, right? If Matt Olson has a 45 home run season, if Austin Riley has a 35 home run season, if Murph and crew behind the plate give you everything that you need, and they're offensively and defensively where they need to be. If Ozzie Albies, speaking of bounce back years, if he has a bounce back year, I think you can extend that leash a little bit more. But if you're counting on him in any way, shape, or form, and he shows you more of what he did last year as opposed to a few years ago, as you talk about windows, right?
Yeah.
You can't have somebody sabotaging actively that window. And if Michael Harris doesn't use this offseason to fix the hole in his swing, to get his timing down right, to get his footwork right, like we watched, it's so strange, right? Because we watched like the de-evolution and the deconstruction of a player's swing and stance at the plate. Though it usually goes the other way. They usually come into the league really raw, and then you build on it and you get better over time. His is reverse. So maybe, the new staff comes in and they see something. I know Hires is back, but obviously there's going to be a fresh set of eyes with Walt Weiss and everybody else. Maybe they can fix it. We've seen this time in Memorial again, especially in baseball, where players go into slumps and they get loops. Matt Olson gets a loop in his swing. You're guaranteed it every year. His swing gets out of whack and he needs to find it. So I think that question is entirely dependent upon the team, because he's too talented to say we're not at least going to see what happens this year before we make any rash decisions. So I think, even if they bench him at some point this year, they're not going to flat out cut him. They're not going to say you're not playing anymore. He's too valuable with his defense and his speed. So I don't think we're having any long-term Harris conversations until this time next year.
Yeah. And that kind of mirrors, I think, some of the thoughts I had there on Saturday. The follow-up to that, though, is if you're looking for that bat, do you need to find a guy who can play center field, whether it's a trade for Byron Buxton, whether it's a signing of Cody Bellinger? Because right now, if you try to bench Michael Harris or send him down to Gwinnett or whatever you try to do, Eli White's your center fielder. And nothing against Eli White. He played his butt off last year. He's not the same caliber of player as what Michael Harris can be. Do you need to prioritize center field for your offensive ad, or is that one of those would be nice to have, but Michael Harris will still be out there because of the defense in 26, and if it's still a problem, we can address that next offseason?
Here's my problem.
Yeah.
You know what the guys you just named do? Cost money.
Oh, yeah.
No, and they cost money. That's the problem. Is this team? Cody Bellinger is going to get a what? $28
million a year?
$30 million a year for 5 years, something like that. Braves aren't going to pay. I mean, they don't pay their own guys that, so they're not going to pay. They're not going to pay somebody.
$22 million is kind of a hard cap with Atlanta.
Yeah, and the thing is, guys like Bellinger and Buxton, they're so streaky, right? Like it's you never know which guy is going to show up on a year-to-year basis. Bellinger goes from looking like an MVP one year to looking lost another year, hitting 220. Buxton has surged as the last couple of seasons, but he was a great defender, average hitter, and elsewise for the majority of his career. I mean, he has not been the sort of Gold Glove caliber, all-star level player that he's been of late. He's sort of come on and found it. But I think the other options that are out there, you're looking at more of another Mauricio Dubón type. I think guy would be to come in and do what guys like Adam Duvall and guys like that over the years have done, that have maybe had some success in their major league career, but at this point in their career are not commanding $15-20 million. I don't see it because of how much they're going to have to spend on pitching. And they already have. They gave Raisel Iglesias $16 million for 1 year. It's a lot of money.
It is. I mean, it's not a pay cut over what he made the year before, although he wasn't as good. But like the Dodgers were offering him the same amount. So like Atlanta had to match it to get him to come back. That kind of leads me into we talk about windows. We talk about spending money on pitching and all of that. Leads me into a larger conversation that I don't think a lot of people have had yet about Ozzie Albies coming up towards the end of his contractual control, and then Ronald Acuña Jr. coming up to the end of his contractual control. Ozzie's the longest tenured Brave. Ronald's obviously the superstar of the team. With the way that the Freddie Freeman situation ended, right, where Atlanta could have kept him and didn't, I still maintain that was Freeman's decision to leave, right? With the way the Dansby Swanson thing ended, the Max Fried thing ended, can Atlanta afford to let Ozzie leave and then afford to let Ronald leave? Or is this something where you got to stick to your guns? You can't pay these guys for their decline years in their 30s, no matter how good they are right now.
I thought bringing back Ozzie this year was a mistake. I'm not going to lie. He fell off a cliff that I don't know if he's going to be able to recover from. We hope so. We all love Ozzie, heart and soul of the team. But I think with the way this middle infield performed last season, you needed significant upgrades at second base and shortstop. And to commit to Ozzie again with, Mauricio Dubón as your backup plan, that's nice. And he can come in and fill the defensive holes that Ozzie had at times last year. Ozzie was hitting 20 home runs a year for a clip there. Where is that power and that production coming from? Same thing from the shortstop position when Arcia came in for a couple of years and was, played way above his baseball card averages and sort of found a new home here. And then that ultimately fizzled out as he got a little older. Yeah. So if I'm looking at the state of this middle infield right now, I'm a little surprised that they just sight unseen decided we're bringing you back, and the guy that we're going to have filling in for you is not really an offensive threat to replace you. And then when it comes to Ronald, I mean, if we're just looking at the bare facts, the biggest contract the Braves have ever given out in their history was to Austin Riley at over $200 million. Ronald's going to command more than twice that. Even though he's Ronald, and even though he's a top 5 player in baseball, and even though he's your franchise, face of your franchise guy, are they willing to shell out, 2.5 times the most money they've ever done in franchise history to a guy who, let's face it, I just said top 5 player in baseball, giving him all his accolades, but has had multiple season-ending catastrophic leg injuries? Are you willing to buck the trend of your franchise norm and also bet on a player that's been hurt and hurt badly the last few years? I think if I was forced to answer, I'd say probably not, because it's just so much. Ronald Acuña Jr., rightfully so, is not going to take a dime under $500 million. He shouldn't. Look what Vlad Guerrero Jr. just got. Ronald Acuña Jr. is a better baseball player when healthy than Vlad Guerrero Jr. So he's going to want that sort of a contract. Do you see a world where the Braves pay that? I don't know.
Yeah, like it requires Atlanta to do so many things, to your point, they've never done, right? They've never gone past $22 million a year on a multi-year deal under Alex Anthopoulos. They've never willingly signed up for the back half of somebody's career. And in the last 5 years, 810 possible games, he's played just barely over 500 of those. Yeah, now, when he played them, 295 average, he averaged 33 home runs per 162 in there, right? But he won an MVP, but he's not always done that. He's not always been that guy. And I do think this is probably something you've got to get through at least one of the club option years. Like, you've got multiple club option years. You get through one of them. If he's healthy the next 2 years, I think you're open to a conversation, but he has to take a discount. And to your point, I don't see him doing that, especially when you see what Kyle Tucker's going to sign for this winter, when you see what Juan Soto signed for, when you see what Vlad signed for. It's the conversation for me becomes, if it's Ronald's final season of control and it's clear that you've not made a deal for him, if you're not in contention at the deadline, do you trade him at the deadline? Do you let him walk at the end of the season? Right? Like, I don't want to game out the world where Ronald's not here, but if you look at it objectively, without the emotions of who Ronald is to the franchise, it's really hard to make the argument that Atlanta does all of these things differently to keep him for the rest of his career.
Unfortunately, because it is unfortunate, I totally agree. I mean, it would have to be, as you just said, like a confluence of events and aligning of the stars where he goes out next season and he hits 330, he hits 40 home runs, he steals 35 bases, he plays Gold Glove in the outfield, and just reassures everybody that that's still there. Yeah. And he's still that player, and he's still that. Because remember, too, unfortunately, when he came back, he had that magical first game back, but then he struggled for a while to find his footing. Clearly, the timing was off, the rhythm was off after not playing again for so long. So it's going to be maybe the toughest decision in franchise history, because we've also seen it where you can let him go, Freddie Freeman, and then he goes out and is the best player on back-to-back World Series teams outside of Shohei Ohtani. And that just sort of gets rubbed in your face if you're a Braves fan. Like, that was our guy. Are you going to let Ronald Acuña Jr.? The Yankees missed out on Juan Soto. Are the Yankees going to go to Ronald Acuña Jr. and say, we're going to give you $500 million for 10 years, $50 million a year, sign the check?
You're going to succeed.
As the everyday right fielder. Yeah, as Judge makes the transition to first base. That's a very real possibility.
Yeah, it's tough to think about, but I think that when we talk about windows, you have to think about, what does giving 2 Atlanta max salaries to one player who's not guaranteed to be on the field, what does that do for you going forward? Chris, thanks for your time. Where can folks go to get all of you, your show, your tweets, your thoughts, all of that?
Yeah, appreciate it. At C Thomas Radio is where you find me. And then I am on 92.9 The Game, 6 to 10 every Monday through Friday. And then catch me, if you are a Falcons fan, you mentioned the Falcons as well. Yep. We do wins and losses, and there's certainly been a lot more losses this year than wins. We do it each and every game after the game. I take your calls on 92.9 The Game.
Yep. That'll do it for Braves Today for Wednesday, November 26th. Do me a favor. You're listening on audio, 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. Make sure you check out Chris, 92.9 The Game, Monday through Friday after Falcons games, and on social media at C Thomas Radio. For Chris Thomas, I'm Lindsey Crosby. This has been Braves Today.